Hi, and welcome back to the second episode of what's going to be a little sort of series taking you along the whole dissertation process. So if you haven't seen it already, there is a first episode out, and that is talking about the beginning of it, how to pick your idea, where these ideas can come from, what sort of things you could look at. So if you want to know more about that, head to the previous video, but this one is going to be looking at the literature review. A literature review is not as daunting and not as hard as it may sound, and if you've never done it before, it definitely is different to essays or reports or anything that you might have already done within your time at university. However, I'm going to break it through into 3 little sections, and hopefully that's going to dissect it a wee bit more, and it'll just make it a little bit easier for you to understand why you do it, what it's for, how you do it, where you find references for it, all these sort of things. So first we're going to look at what is it, and it essentially is in the name. So a literature review is a chapter within your dissertation where you're basically going to review all of the literature that has been published about your topic, anything that's relevant to your topic, similar samples, everything like that. You're basically just going to go and find all these different things, and then you're going to collate them into one chapter, and you're going to put them all together, essentially like an essay. But instead of just making a point, you're going to critique. You're going to look at what's similar in theirs than to yours. So a question that you might ask about this is, well, why do you do it? Why is it useful? What point does it have within my dissertation? And essentially what you're going to do is you're going to show your marker, or whoever reads your dissertation, okay, this is my topic, and you'll say this within your introduction. But then you're going to say, this is what's already been found out within my topic, X, Y, Z. And then you're going to say, and this is what I'm going to find out. So essentially your literature review is a chance to tell whoever's marking your dissertation, okay, this is what's already been found out, so this is done, and I'm not going to do this, or I'm going to add to this in a different way, but this is here by someone else. However, from doing that, you're then going to be able to find, okay, well, where's the gap? And they always talk about this gap within a dissertation, and this is essentially what it is. So you're going to figure out, well, what's not been looked at, what's not been found out yet. Where is the gap? And that can be anything. That can be, you're going to look at a different age group, you're going to look at a different gender, you're going to look at a different social class, you might be looking at the same topic but in a different angle, all these different things. But your literature review is basically a load of papers that have already been published, so they're all academic, and you're going to say, this is what's happened and this is what I'm going to do. So essentially your literature review can give you inspiration for your dissertation and for your study. If you're doing primary data, you might want to look at the samples that have been within these papers that you're looking at and think, okay, well, can I do similar? If they do interviews, can I do interviews? If they do focus groups, should I be doing focus groups? And you don't always have to do the same. Sometimes it's good to do different. However, look at what works. If these studies are finding great results, maybe go down a similar path, because then you know that it's reliable and that you're going to get something out of your dissertation. Now, whilst we're on the topic of shaping your data, a lot of researchers and your lecturers might talk to you about your saturation point. And that is a key thing to find out within these papers that you're looking at. So your saturation point is, if you're collecting data, at what point do you get where essentially whatever you find out past this point is just going to be the same as what you have done up till now. So your saturation point is basically, if I gave you an example, I would say, okay, well, within my study, my field, they say that 12 to 20 participants is the great sort of point, that anything more than that, you're sort of wasting your time, you're wasting their time, you're not going to find out anything more. And obviously you can't predict this 100% because that 21st person, you might actually get something useful out of. Basically, it just gives you a guide into knowing how many people you need to speak to, how many surveys you need to get in, and things like that. So it's definitely a key point to figure out within literature chapters, how many people are they speaking to, how many surveys are they sending out. Now, you might be saying, okay, that's great, but where am I going to find out this information? And trust me, Google will be your best friend. I know that your university might be equipped with libraries, which are great. However, not everyone has access to them. So you're going to want to find your key terms. Now, these are going to be little words that whenever you pop them into Google or search engines, that they come up with lots and lots and lots of matches, and that is what you're going to want to keep a hold of. So in terms of my dissertation, I have definitely got masculinity, fashion, femininity, and gender as my key terms. So whenever I type something in that's to do with these, a lot of the time I'll get a lot of results bouncing back that have got similarities. It also just saves you a lot of time, so you're not having to sift through loads and loads and loads of references. There's different databases on Google or any search engine. So you've got Google Scholar, you've got Wiley Online Library, you've got ProQuest, you've got ScienceDirect. So have a little bit of a play about, because you'll definitely be able to find different search engines, different databases that have got similarities to your studies. So it means again that you just know where to find your stuff. Another point on references is you need to look at legitimate sources. So anything like BBC News, Sky News, Wikipedia, online blogs, they're not what's called academic. So although you might be able to use them a few times here and there, if you're looking at online blogs, if you're referencing social media, stuff like that, there is ways that you can do it, but just make sure that you are looking at proper sources. Now, another little tip is once you find a source that you like, great, bookmark it, keep it so you don't lose it. However, what you're going to do is you're going to scroll to a place on the page where it says related articles or cited by or similar articles or anything like this, and you're going to click on these, and this is what's going to be called your snowball effect. So once you find an article that you like and it's very similar to what you're looking at, you don't want to just use that one. You want, okay, well, who else has used this? What else have they said? And it's very hard to find similar articles. So with these little guides, you're going to click on who cited this, and then you can then see new or older studies that have used this reference, and you'll be able to build up a bigger bank of references to use within your literature review. It's also worth remembering that you need to look at the dates for these papers. So it's all as well looking at this article and you think, great, this is exactly what I want to look at. However, it was done in 1998. There's a lot of time that has happened since then, so essentially a lot could have changed. It's okay to use older articles, older papers for things like theories, because they did start decades ago. However, if you're looking at studies, then I would advise you to look at something within the last sort of 5 to 10 years to make sure that the relevancy is key. Another point is, if you desperately want to use it, you could suggest that you're taking inspiration from this paper. However, you would like to see what has changed within the last 20 years from this paper to your study. It is a good way of incorporating it, but I would strongly suggest that if you're using studies, that you just use it ones more recently. So looking on to the third topic, we're going to talk a bit about the structure. So there is a structure and a flow that needs to happen within your literature review. You can't just plop these all down and hope for the best. It is a bit like an essay where you're going to have a wee flow from the start to the finish, integrating points together. A good way to do this is split it into either themes or areas. So as I said earlier, I'm looking at masculinity, fashion, femininity, and advertising. So that is essentially my themes. I'm going to place all of my studies, all of my references, all of my papers that are to do with masculinity in the same area. They're not going to be down in the advertising part or the femininity part. At the end of each theme, area, paragraph, whatever you want to call it, you do want to make them flow. It is like an essay where you want it to go from one bit to the other. So definitely keep that in mind. Maybe if there's a study that incorporates both, so like masculinity and femininity, maybe try and place that at the end. So then you can try and just link the paragraph from one to another. Essentially, your literature review is like an essay in a structure. You're going to have an introduction. You're then going to have your main body, which is going to show your area of interest. So it's going to show what you found out, why this has happened, how this has been instigated, what sort of research samples have been done so far. And then you're going to move on to a conclusion, and then you're going to talk about what you're bringing to the table. So that is essentially your structure. You've got an intro, you've got a main body, and then you've got a conclusion. And within your main body, you're going to reference all these literature. So all these papers, all these articles that you think are relevant to your study. I know that was a lot of words, and I know that was a lot to take in. So honestly, just write these little things down, and trust me, it will make your life so much easier when it comes to the time that you're going to do it. So looking back at the little topics, we first looked at, okay, well, what is a literature review? And to give a little summary, it's essentially just a chapter where you're going to review all the published literature that has been out there. You're going to say what's been good about it, what's been bad, and how this is going to shape your study. You're then going to look at, okay, well, how do I find these? And essentially, Google. If you're a book person, go into the library, see what's out there, but trust me, you don't need to be paying a fortune to take all these books, buy these books, when there is so much out there online. Want to look at things like Google Scholar, Wiley Online Library, ScienceDirect, and you want to type in your key terms and you want to see what comes back. Filter your search from the last sort of 5 to 10 years and see if there's anything that's relevant that you can pull into your review. Remember that you want to use legitimate sources. So yes, you can use some social media references or online blogs, however, do not rely on them too heavily. You want to be looking at legitimate sources, so published peer-reviewed papers, and putting them into your review. Another thing is, remember your dates. Don't have too many papers that are too old because then there's too much of a gap. You want to split up all your literature review into different themes and areas to make it flow, but remember to integrate them with each other. I hope this has helped and I hope this has not been too daunting. If you have any questions, of course, pop them in the comment box below and we will get back to you. But have fun with it. There's so much literature out there. There's so many articles, there's so many papers, there's so many videos that you can watch which helps you totally immerse yourself in your topic, and it will make it so much easier the more that you know. So go and have fun. Go and look at some articles, look in your cited by, your related articles, and start building up a bank. I promise the faster you do that, the easier it will become. Thank you so much, and I'll see you for the next one.